The state of Kentucky is honeycombed with caves and cave systems, including the famous Mammoth Cave. One of the lesser known of these is an underground river in the city of Bowling Green. If you weren't paying attention, you'd never know that nearly 60 feet below U.S. Highway 31 West lies the Lost River Cave. Lost River Cave's history dates back to 8500 BC, when Native Americans used the cave for a shelter and to bury their dead. Some of Warren County's earliest industries were located at the cave's entrance in the late 1700s, including a grist mill, sawmill, and even a distillery. Lost River Cave and the valley around it also had an important role in the Civil War. Confederate forces used the cave as a temporary shelter in 1861. Some local folklore even claim that Jesse James and his band of outlaws used the cave as a hideout. In 1933, an underground nightclub opened with a ballroom at the front of the cave. At a cool 57 degrees, the club provided a welcome relief from the heat of the summer. Big bands and musical talents, including Dinah Shore, frequented the underground nightclub during the height of its operations. Unfortunately, laws banning the sale of alcohol below street level finally closed the club in the early 1960s. I was able to tour this hidden gem, and our tour guide went on to share this chilling story about a ghost that was seen inside the cave.
This cave is actually known as Dead Man's Cave, between the medic camp era and the caving or the milling era. And basically, the way that story goes, two doctors had bribed a man on death row. They basically were like, "Hey, look, we're going to bring you some bourbon so you can go out, not sober. And all we ask is that you just give us your body after you die. We want to cadaver it and do some pioneering research, basically." Well, these two doctors, they kind of told some people that they had this going. They weren't really quiet about it. The town was infuriated. Back in the day, this area was highly religious, and the laws reflected that, and it was illegal to cut up a body. They thought it trapped a soul here on earth. Okay, I don't know if that's true, but pretty much what they ended up doing is the town refused to let the doctors have access to the body, and they buried it anyways. Well, the doctors are pretty upset about this. Okay, they gave this guy some bourbon. Okay, and that's pretty hard to get to him, and so they spent some money, and so they went and grave robbed the guy, brought him down here where that dock is nowadays, and they cadavered him right there at the mouth of the cave. No joke. And so people thought that trapped his soul here. And so it was known as Dead Man's Cave for about 15 years. And some people came down here and added to the story by dispatching themselves at the mouth of the cave as well, for whatever reason. So that added to it for a few years. But anyways, there you go. That's about the only ghost story I can tell you. I will say this, actually. This is a pretty cool fact. In 1996, right before we were installing the dam, there was a group of teenagers who snuck in here at night, and they reported following a man in a smock into the cave, to the back. And they got to the back of the cave, and he wasn't there. And a young woman had got freaked out by this and had convinced the whole group to come out. She was at the head of the group, and as she came out, she said that the man was beckoning her to come on. And so that freaked her out, so she paused for a second, and then eventually headed out of the cave pretty quickly. Well, the only two floods we've ever reported in the history that are flash floods, where they fill up the cave pretty quickly, one of them happened that night, right as they exited the cave, like an hour later. So they like to say that guy was maybe the cadavered man, and he was helping them get out of the cave. So I don't know if that's true. There you go.
My tour turned out to be uneventful, but I would love to come back after sundown to see if I could encounter the spirit haunting the Lost Cave in Bowling Green, Kentucky.